If you're watching this on Moodle or floated by on YouTube, a very warm welcome. My name is Rory Lees Oakes, and in this presentation we're going to look at an introduction to counselling skills. The following presentation does not constitute counselling training. It's an overview of counselling skills. Anyone wishing to practice counselling should undertake appropriate training and have relevant supervision. I'm going to start off this presentation with a quote, and it's a Sioux prayer from the Sioux tribe in North America, Native Americans, and it says, "Great Spirit, help me never to judge another until I have walked in his moccasins." And I guess what this is saying is that you cannot understand someone else's motivations or behaviours until really you understand what their view of the world is, their life is. So in counselling skills training, and certainly in counselling training, we approach our speakers, the people who speak to us, with a non-judgmental approach in the hope that we can understand better who they are and they can gain some understanding of what they need to look at or change or accept in their lives. So we're going to look at the assignment sheet, the ABC Awards assignment sheet for the level 3 counselling skills tape, and I'm going to do it in order. So we're going to start off with attentiveness and rapport building. So let me ask you a question. What does it feel like to be rushed in a conversation? Or have you ever had a conversation with someone who wanted to get away or really did not want to be in your company? How did that feel? I guess sometimes it feels really awful, doesn't it, when people do that? So here are some examples of attentiveness and rapport building skills. We're going to have a look at some useful tips for when you're doing your tape or your video, whichever format it's recorded in, I guess. So first of all, be warm and friendly towards the listener. If you're meeting someone for the first time, it may be asking how they got there, did they manage to find the place okay. Culturally, certainly in the UK, we usually offer people tea or a coffee. It's a kind of a cultural thing, glass of water maybe. There are some debates whether this is the kind of thing one does, but we are living in a culture where tea is a great common denominator. So, and I like tea, so I would usually offer someone a drink, and that shows a kind of warmth and friendliness. Ask them if they're comfortable, and what's comfortable for us may not be comfortable for them. And if you're sat in an uncomfortable place, the wind's blowing or the door's open so people can hear what's being said, or the seat doesn't feel comfortable, then you're not likely as a speaker to be able to share your story. You're more likely to be focused on your discomfort. So always ask your speaker if they're comfortable. Remember someone's name. It's really important. Names are how we define ourselves, and having someone remember your name does make us feel special and make us feel that someone's paying attention to us. Use eye contact, but don't stare. Now, in the Western world, eye contact is considered a way of someone showing to another that they're paying attention, that they're focusing on them. In some parts of the world, eye contact is considered rude. So you have to be thoughtful with some clients, some speakers who may come from the eastern part of the world, may see eye contact as uncomfortable or disrespectful. So you'd have to be thoughtful of that. Don't stare at people. There's a whole world of difference, isn't there, between using eye contact to show that you're listening and staring at somebody. And if you've ever been stared at, it's very off-putting and very scary and can sometimes look like something out of a scary movie. So be thoughtful of how much eye contact you give. If it's a second session, read your notes and familiarise yourself with the speaker's story before seeing the speaker. Don't get the notes out in front of the speaker and start going through them. It really does give the impression that it's all a bit rushed. Make sure that you've read or have reviewed your notes, or you can remember, for those people with a really good memory, remember the spirit of the story, the theme of the story before seeing the speaker. And that's being attentiveness and building rapport. Active listening. Well, it's paying attention, showing that you are interested in the person sat in front of you. And this can be demonstrated by the listener in many ways. For example, paying attention. It might seem a small thing, but actually having someone pay attention to you. Nodding. Now, no one wants to be listened to by someone who looks like one of those dogs you used to see in the backs of cars that nodded up and down every time it went over a bump. But nodding is a good way of showing that you're listening without interrupting somebody. And I personally use They're called affirming verbals, and effectively they're a way of showing you're paying attention without interrupting. Reflecting and paraphrasing. Well, reflecting is reflecting feelings back, how someone's felt, and paraphrasing is reflecting back in your own words what someone said to you. Simple as that, and we'll come to that later on. Asking questions to clarify your understanding. Occasionally, speakers may be talking about things that they understand, but you might not. So it's useful sometimes to ask questions just to clarify. But don't go down the road of asking lots of questions. It can feel more like a job interview or a police interview than the use of counselling skills. Empathic listening. Now, empathy is defined as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Empathic responses should contain the emotion of what the speaker said as well as the words. So this is reflecting emotions. For example, the speaker says, "I've had to have my dog Susie put down. I miss her. Had her for 10 years. She was my friend. I cannot come to terms with what I have done. I'm sure the neighbours will think I am cruel." And the listener says, "You miss Susie, your friend, and feel guilty for having her put down. It feels that you are worried about what your neighbours will think." So in that very short response, the listener has summed up two quite big feelings. One of guilt, because the speaker quite clearly said, "Cannot come to terms with what I have done." And also the fear or the worry about what the neighbours will think. And, I would think the speaker would feel really heard with that response. The next skill is effective questioning. Now, there are many ways of using questions as a listener. Most effective questions are those that clarify your understanding, and this feels less evasive for the speaker. For example, avoid closed questions, those things that need a yes or a no answer. Very simple. If you ask someone to look out the window and they say to them, "Is it raining?" they can only answer yes or no, really. If you ask them what the weather's like, that's going to give you a whole different response and better your understanding. So only use questions to clarify your understanding, and used open questions. And open questions are effectively start off with how, what, when. Avoid why, as it can appear judgmental. Why is usually followed by a phrase, "Did you do that? Have you done that? Are you doing this? Are continuing to do this?" And it can feel very judgmental, so be very thoughtful on the use of the word why. Paraphrasing and summarising. Well, paraphrasing is reflecting back to the speaker what they have said but using your own words. A summary is usually used towards the end of a session to reflect back the theme or themes of the speaker's story. It allows the speaker to feel both heard and understood. And it's really important that people feel heard, that their story is heard. That part of their life they're sharing with you is heard. But it's also important that whoever's hearing your story understands it. There's two different things there, being heard and being understood. So we use paraphrasing and summarising to make sure that we understand the speaker. And we give an example here. "My daughter lives with her father." This is the speaker speaking. "She is ill and I'm worried sick. She lives a long way away and I have to get a train, but I can't afford it." And the paraphrase, the listener says, "You are worried about your daughter's health and need to visit her, but this is causing you money worries as well." So again, in a very short response, the listener has summed up exactly what the speaker's saying. She's saying that her health, she's worried about her health, but also money worries. So that's a very accurate. So not only being listened to, but heard, or not only being heard, but listened to as well. Now, focusing and challenging are two skills in themselves, and sometimes they need a little bit of practicing. Speakers may bring a lot of issues to a session. The skill of focusing is to ask them which issue is the most pressing. Challenging has to be used thoughtfully and may appear in a paraphrase. And I'm going to give you some examples. So the first example is focusing. And the speaker says, I am not well. My husband has left me and my car has broken down. The listener says, you seem to have a number of difficulties. I wonder which is causing you the most difficulty. Perhaps we can look at that first and the others in time. So it's kind of clearing the clutter away. Sometimes speakers will come to a session and they will have lots of difficulties on the plate. It's useful for the listener to try and find which is the most pressing and work with that. And usually, once the major difficulties being talked about by the speaker, the rest of them usually kind of fall away. There's usually a prevalent difficulty. Sometimes there's not, I have to say, but generally speaking, that's the case. Now, challenging is another skill, and I'm going to give you an example of it. The speaker says, I'm fed up. My woman boss has told me that my work is not good enough. A woman shop assistant won't take back a shirt without a receipt, and my wife has told me I must do some housework. So clearly, there's a theme in this speaker's story, isn't there? He's talking about women a lot, and he's also talking about assertive women. His boss has said that his work's not good enough, or she's being assertive. Shop assistant won't take back a receipt without receipt. Well, I guess that's assertive. And his wife is certainly saying to him, you need to get your hand in and get some housework done. And the listener says, you seem to be having difficulty with assertive women. Now, challenging is something that some listeners feel really difficult with, but occasionally speakers have to hear the truth of what they're saying, but it has to be done with a lot of support and very gently, and shouldn't really be done too often, I don't think. But that's a challenge. It gives you an idea of what a challenge looks like. The next one is reflecting on the counselling skills process and immediacy. Sometimes a speaker will generate a feeling in a listener. This is called transference and is part of being able to understand someone else's experiences. So if you ever watched a film where the hero or the heroine is getting into a bit of a scrape, getting into difficulties, and you feel your heart racing, you feel your pulse going, you feel frightened, a number of emotions are going through you, well, that's transference. The director and the actor are transferring the emotion onto you, and that's the whole part of going to the cinema or watching a movie. Happens in books. You can get it from books as well. You read a book and a feeling comes for you. It's a natural reaction to listening to someone else's story. I'll give you an example here. I recently had a car crash. This is a speaker speaking. My car turned over 6 times and ended up upside down in a pond. I had to fight to get out. Let me ask you this before I give you the response on the screen. What feeling is coming up for you? If you heard that from someone, what feeling would be generated in you? And I'm going to give you the feeling that would be generated in me, and I may say, this feels really scary for me. What feelings are around for you? So there's me owning my own feeling. I'm saying it feels scary, but I'm also asking, what are the feelings for you? So I'm asking the speaker what their feelings are. So there we are, having immediacy. This is my immediate feeling to the speaker's story, but also I guess I'm reflecting on the counselling skills process. I'm asking what feelings are around for you. Awareness of boundaries, including referrals. Well, being aware of our own competence is an important part of using counselling skills effectively. Speakers may ask of us things we cannot offer, such as advice or perhaps friendship. In situations such as these, we may need to refer on to another professional. So I'll give you an example again. Speaker, I wonder if you could give me some legal advice on my rent arrears. I don't need any other help but this. And the listener responds, housing advice is not something I'm trained in. Well, there's honesty, isn't it? That's really being honest right from the start. Not skirting around the issue or fluffing around the issue. It's being really genuine and really real. And then the listener goes on to say, would it help if I made a referral to the Citizens Advice Service. So there's a solution. And one thing I would say is that when someone comes in any helping profession for help, they must not go away feeling like their problem is too big for anybody to help with, because they'll just go home, shut the door, and won't ask for help again. So we have to be careful that we don't give the impression that we cannot help. What we need to do is provide a solution. So we're honest enough to talk about, well, it's not something I'm trained in, I can't offer housing advice, but here's a solution, and make a referral to the Citizens Advice Service. It may be the speaker doesn't know what the Citizens Advice Service is or what they offer. So it should be seamless. The referral should go through, they should be contacted by the Citizens Advice Service and proceed into another service that can help them. Last, works at an appropriate pace. Well, sometimes speakers need time to develop and share their story. They may feel a mixture of emotions such as anger, fear, shame or sadness. Don't rush them or try to answer for them. They know their own truths. And certainly with fear or shame, there can always be a sense that people don't want to discuss what's going on for them because they feel sad or shame or anger. And just give them time. Use silence, which is a great skill, to allow them to develop that area of themselves to be able to speak about what's going on for them. Don't rush them or try to answer for them. People know their own truths. People who come for listening, speakers who come for listening, or clients who come for counselling, sometimes they know their own truths. They just want a chance to check out what they need to do. So patience is a useful personal quality for a listener. Be patient. Checks understanding with the speaker. Well, speakers can sometimes impart quite a lot of information in a very short time. Checking your understanding is a useful skill, as it allows you, the listener, to make sure you've fully understood what's being said. For example, he's always getting on at me, telling me I am not good enough, always speaking to people behind my back. So there's a speaker offering this story to you, but it's a bit vague. Who is he and who are the other people? So as a clarification, the listener says, you talk about he and other people, could I clarify who they are? So that's a respectful way of just kind of getting yourself to understand who this he is and also who are these other people. And that's a respectful way of approaching it. So that ends this presentation. If you want further information, well, if you're watching on Moodle, if you click the resource tab here, I'll put some further information on. I may put the assignment on and some other handouts in a zip file that you can download. If you're watching on YouTube, well, I'll put a link in to my Dropbox and I'll provide a zip with much the same thing that's available on the Moodle site for you to lift away and have a look at. And finally, thank you for watching.